Hello, dear viewers of the HistoReddit channel. Today, we're about to dive into yet another incredible story that came straight from the depths of Reddit. Get ready for a journey full of twists, surprises, and family dilemmas. This story will leave you with your jaw dropped, and I guarantee that part 2 will be even more exciting. But before we jump into this plot, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any details of these captivating narratives. Come on, it's time to start another incredible adventure in the world of Reddit stories. My mother requested that I give her my house because my younger sister is pregnant and needs it more than me. I'm a 31-year-old man and I have a 28-year-old sister who, honestly, has always been our mother's pride, although not my father's. For as long as I can remember, my parents separated during my teenage years due to my mother cheating on an old high school boyfriend. She has always been controlling, manipulative, and narcissistic. Unfortunately, my sisters seem to be a reflection of her in this regard. Our mother acted as if she had complete authority over me, giving orders as if I were a simple dog. She was humiliating, and my sister always supported her in these moments. So it's not surprising that after our parents separated, I decided to live with my father full-time while my sister stayed with my mother. They were both very similar and only went to my father when the subject involved money. Although I was more like my father, he was business-oriented and started teaching me about the running of his company when I was just 16 years old. I was very successful at this, and after 12 years of working for him, I was made a partner in the firm. Things were going very well. However, about 8 months ago, a tragedy occurred. My father, who had been a heavy smoker for much of his life, became immunocompromised and eventually passed away from COVID-19 at the age of 60. After years of not seeing each other, my mother and sister appeared again during a socially distanced funeral for my father, held via video call. My father had been cremated according to his wishes and buried in a local cemetery, so there was no body or coffin present. My sister seemed to be really grieving, but my mother seemed indifferent the entire time. It was no surprise to me, as the last time she saw my father, she screamed at him, claiming he owed her more money and threatened to sue him. He had paid alimony and child support the entire time he was legally obligated, and even invested $30,000 in my sister's college fund. However, 10 years after the divorce, he was no longer legally obligated to send money to my mother, thanks to a judge's ruling. Furthermore, she was not experiencing financial difficulties. She continued working the same job she'd had for nearly 3 decades, owned the old family home we used to share in full, and even rented out 2 of her rooms regularly on Airbnb. Sometime after the funeral, my father's will was read. He apparently realized that if smoking didn't affect him, something else might, and even joked about it in a pre-recorded video. He left virtually all of his assets and most of the money from his business and home to me. My sister received a 2015 Nissan Altima and about $10,000 in cash. My mother, in turn, was left with only $1,000 and a few other items that she claimed were rightfully hers since the divorce. Furthermore, my girlfriend now lives with me in the house my father left me. My sister practically dropped out of community college after 2 years to live with her boyfriend and work only part-time online. During this time, she became pregnant but unfortunately suffered a traumatic miscarriage. I only found out about this after the funeral, as we had virtually no contact and no one informed me when her boyfriend's job was affected by the lockdown, gradually reducing his working hours. Eventually, he could only hold down a part-time job, which severely impacted their finances. He eventually suggested that she also look for a better job opportunity while he looked for a second job. One night, I received an unexpected knock on my door and, when I answered, I was greeted unpleasantly by my mother and sister. They both entered without even asking and felt free to enter my room. My girlfriend and I exchanged confused looks, and I asked why they came. My sister was laughing, exploring my house like she was taking a tour. My mother, on the other hand, simply sat on my couch and snapped her fingers, demanding a bottle of ice-cold water. My girlfriend got the water for herself, while I questioned her reason for visiting. My sister seemed to be all giddy and just ignored me, continuing to snoop around my house. Before long, I heard her shout from the hallway, "Mommy, it's perfect." Yes, she still called my mother that. My mother finally said, "Well, I think it's time for you to do your duty as a brother. Now that your father has passed away, this house should be mine since I was his only wife. But you can still make it right. You get a lot of money and you can just buy a new house. Your sister needs this a lot more since she's the one expecting a baby. But if you're determined to stay, you can just take a room and cover all the expenses until you decide to move out." My girlfriend and I had read enough stories on Reddit to know exactly where this was going and what it would be like if we let it happen. So, I mentally prepared myself and took a deep breath before resolutely stating, "This isn't happening. You can't order me around, especially in my own home. Yes, I make a lot of money, but I'll save it for when I really need it. Not that you mind." My mother started snapping her fingers at me, as she used to do in the past, and I said firmly, "Stop. I'm an adult and I won't accept this. Don't order me around. This house is rightfully mine, and your sister, you're not going to live here. Consider this a formal eviction notice. However, since I'm kind, I'll give you 2 weeks to pack your bags and transfer the property to me." In the back of my mind, I thought this couldn't be real, but then I picked up my cell phone and started dialing. My mother quickly stood up and shouted, "What are you doing?" I responded with determination, "I'm going to do what I should have done when this started. I'm going to call the police to get you out of my house." She tried to snatch my phone out of my hands, but I was determined to take a stand. Then she moved forward trying to step on her cell phone, but I was quick enough to grab it before she could. That's when I firmly stated, "That's enough. If you don't leave, I will ask the police myself to remove you by force." My mother, in a moment of anger, tried to slap me in the face, but I reacted with twice as much force, using the back of my hand. The blow was so strong that it made her fall back onto the sofa, holding her red, makeup-stained face in shock. She finally shouted, "How dare you?" As I resumed dialing my phone and warned her that if she didn't leave, I would call the police to forcibly remove her. At that moment, my sister intervened, reaching out and pleading with me to do the right thing as a big brother. I replied firmly, "Oh, really? Am I the bad brother? Last time I checked, I was the one who had to work since I was a teenager to survive. I did all the housework while you spent the day playing video games or chatting with your friends. And on top of that, you stole my hard-earned money to go shopping after spending all your allowance. You are a complete freeloader and a thief. I owe you nothing now. Both of you, get out of here before I dial that last one number." My sister started crying, begging, "Mommy, please make him stop. My mother then started hugging her and kissing her cheeks, giving me furious looks. She seemed to think she was smart and said, "You know, if you call the police, I might just tell them that you hit me. Who knows, I might even tell everyone that you wanted to do something much worse to a poor pregnant girl in need. I don't think that would be good for you." I stopped her with my hand raised and said calmly, "Stop. If you haven't noticed, my girlfriend over there has her phone recording the whole time. That means we have evidence of you assaulting me first and openly admitting that you would lie to the police. I don't think that would be good for your reputation at work or for your little Airbnb." My mother was furious, but soon lost heart and began dragging my sister away. My sister threw a tantrum and broke loose, sitting on my porch steps. I just looked at my mother and said, "See, this is the result of the mimimi you raised her with." She looked at me and I took the opportunity to ask them never to come back. My mother turned red with anger, and they finally left after a few minutes, with my mother giving me a dismissive look. Before they left, I grabbed my smartphone and said, "Time is ticking." "Please Mom, get off my property," I asked, as my mom led my sister to the car. She gave me one last disdainful look before leaving. I thought that would be the end of it, but my mother was never someone who would just let things happen. After a few days, I started receiving messages from people I know, including some online relatives. Many of them were furious with me, while others had questions about what was happening. I tried checking my Facebook but realized I couldn't see anything they were saying as my sister and mother had blocked me on their social media. However, my girlfriend still had access to everything since they kept their profiles open. We decided to capture all the posts and even printed some of them. Both profiles contained posts defaming me, calling me greedy and heartless for allegedly stealing the house that was supposed to be my sister's inheritance. They claimed that I had paid the lawyer who had administered my father's will, which was a complete lie, and they both knew it. I called my lawyer, who was also a family lawyer and a trusted friend, and gave him copies of all the Facebook screenshots and the video my girlfriend had taken the day my mother demanded my house. He initially suggested sending a cease and desist letter, but I wanted to go beyond that. He sent a letter to them, by courier, which had to be signed, to ensure that they were aware of the legal measures I was taking. My mother called me furious the same day the letter was delivered. I told her that unless she and my sister removed all the false posts from social media and told the absolute truth, I would disclose all the information I had to the entire family and her boss, and also publish the videos online, suing them. She called me irrational, but I didn't give in. I stated that I didn't care what she thought and that if she didn't write everything down and tell the truth, I would ensure that her career would come to an end. Reluctantly, she agreed and, with a dismissive tone, said, "Okay, you win. Keep the house, you fool." She hung up the phone. That same night, all the lying posts disappeared from her and my sister's profiles. I was unblocked, and my mother apologized to me and everyone else, claiming that she had acted rashly and that she believed my sister needed my house more because of her pregnancy. However, she knew the house was rightfully mine, according to my father's will, and she had no right to try to claim it. She also apologized to my sister, but basically repeated our mother's words, blaming her pregnancy and hormones. Responses flooded my mother's and sister's profiles, with many people furious at trying to take over my house. I received a lot of apologetic messages from those who previously believed them, but what it really did was show who was on their side. As many people were quickly believing her false stories, most of which were from her family. Anyway, no one on my father's side believed her, and they openly stated that my sister and her boyfriend moved in with our mother to save money. However, my sister started lamenting online that she couldn't live upstairs. I'm sure the two are having disagreements, since all my sister has done since then is complain online. My mom barely posted anything else due to the previous situation she tried to create. If you've made it this far, this is just part 1 of the story. Part 2 gets even more intense and unbelievable, and will be in the next video. So if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel with notifications turned on, do so you don't miss out. And don't forget to give a thumbs up for support. One thing that immediately caught my attention was when my sister and mother showed up at the house. My sister simply accepted the situation and believed the story that my mother should have the house. This made me think that my sister was naive enough to believe that my mother could take the property from the owner and give it to her, or that my mother was simply inventing some justification to claim that the house was rightfully hers. My mother's plan was terrible. She basically argued that it was time for me to do my brotherly duty and hand over the house. However, this house was a generational heirloom, built with my father's lifelong effort so that he could pass it on to his son. While I could understand my sister's frustration at only inheriting one car, it doesn't change the reality of the situation. The logic behind this situation is hard to ignore, and this theme is also explored in part 2 of the story. That part is quite long, but you might notice some of that thinking there too. As for the girlfriend, who was recording this entire situation, I have a feeling that she may not have started recording intentionally, but rather followed the flow of the discussion and decided later. She was basically in a defensive mode, while my mom and sister were acting confused. Finally, the weirdest part of all of this was when my mom literally stated, "I am God, that means when I say jump, you ask how high." It was bizarre for her to refer to herself as God in the middle of an argument, trying to convince someone to give her something she believed she deserved for some reason, simply because she was the last wife of the person in question, even though they were divorced 10 years ago. Years. Either way, this is an amazing story. Let me know what you would do in this situation, strange or not, and why. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel with notifications turned on. And if you like podcasts, follow our podcast on all major platforms. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. And so we come to the end of this exciting journey through Reddit stories. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you were surprised by these twists and family dilemmas, be sure to like and share this video so that more people can marvel at these captivating narratives. If you haven't already, subscribe to the HistoReddit channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next episodes full of mysteries and surprises. Stay with us on this incredible journey through Reddit stories. Until next time, everyone.